This is Master Scout Hikoichi and welcome to my Slam Dunk channel. No intentions of copyright infringement as I do not own Slam Dunk. This is purely a fan video for the best basketball sports anime of all time. For this video, I'll be ranking the more popular players in the series, or at least those who had their own share of screen time. I'll be categorizing the players into different tiers starting with the C tier all the way to the S tier. S tier being the highest. Basically, here's my criteria on how I rank them. How important is a player to his team? If you remove him, what happens? Series moments and performances. Everyone has their moment in Slam Dunk. Let's take into account the in-series fame of the players as well. Potential. What grade is he in? How great can he be in the future? Personal skills. Is he unguardable? How good is he defensively? What are his weaknesses? Some players are bad at defense, some are bad at offense. And of course, stats and other info that were revealed in the series. And with that, let's start with the C tier. Kyota, Hasegawa, Mikio, Takasago, Oda, Rango, and Nobe. A quick run-through of the players here. Kyota has potential, with skills not really far from Sakuragi in terms of what he displayed in the series. He is athletic and can dunk on people despite just being 178 centimeters tall. Perhaps in his second year, he moves up this ranking. Kainan teammate Takasago is also here in the C tier, as he is the vice captain of Kainan and is considered Kainan's top center and interior defender. Hasegawa, the bitter defenseman who couldn't stop Mitsui. I actually thought about not ranking him since he only had an episode or two in being successful in guarding Mitsui. But let's give a bit of credit for hanging on. From Sano, the totem pole Nobe and Mikio the meatball. Nobe being one of the nation's top rebounders, basing from a quote stating that only Masashi and Sakuragi were the only ones that beat him in rebounding. And Mikio for being unguardable for a while and giving Sakuragi some problems, even if he lacked skill and experience. He even had a lot of playing time during the Sano vs Shohoku game. And finishing up the list are two centers from the OVAs, Oda and Rango, both skilled big men that were better than Sakuragi in the early rounds of the tournament. Both are stars of their own teams. All these players are at most role players for strong teams except for the two OVA players. But even if they were in better teams, they'd still have a role. These are the type of blue-collar guys that lessen the load on the star players, which every team needs. Moving on to the B tier, where players here are key pieces of the better teams already. Removing them will already have a big impact to their team's performances. These players get you additional wins and can turn a bad team into a relatively good one, but not a regional Final Four team. There are 6 players that I placed here and they are Fukuda, Miyagi, Hanagata, and the Toyotama trio of Minami, Kishimoto, and Itakura. Let's start with the Kanagawa players. Remove Fukuda from Ryonan and they get wrecked by Kainan and Shohoku by 20 points easy. Remove Miyagi from Shohoku and you start Yasuda. And you won't get any far with Yasuda as the point guard. Remove Hanagata from Shoyo and they lose to Shohoku even if they have Fujima. Remember that Shoyo held their own without Fujima for most of that game. Now if you put together 3 of these B-tier players, they can be really good like Toyotama. The 3 are the top 3 scorers of their region, so why not higher, right? Well, the 3 seem to be very one-dimensional, all offense and no defense, which makes them very incomplete. Now for the better players. The A tier. These will be your perennial all-stars. Players that you can build around on to make a playoff team. Just add a good supporting cast and you'll be a Final Four team for sure. Will you be champs? Not really. Maybe, but you'll be in the playoffs for sure. We have 10 players in this level and they are Fujima of Shoyo, Akagi, Mitsui, and Sakuragi of Shohoku, Fukatsu of Sano, Uzumi of Ryonan, Jin of Kainan, Morishige of Meiho, And two other players that have less info but can be placed here as well are Michael Okita of Ryokufu and Minoru of Sano. Most here are self-explanatory. They are undoubtedly stars in their own right. Most questionable here is even Sakuragi, as he has yet to enter his prime, but was the force that Sano couldn't stop, mostly due to plot armor. But his consistent development has basically turned him into an almost complete player by the Sano game. He did everything there, including scoring, which was quite a surprise. Fujima brings Shoyo to a different level. They could have made the Kanagawa Final Four had he played the whole game. Great at offense with his court awareness, passing, and three-point shooting, and also great at defense with his steals. He's all that but still couldn't get the ring, having a winless record against Maki, which makes him an A-tier player at the most. Akagi, the best center in Kanagawa, overcame every big man in the region and was the only person of Team Shohoku mentioned in the scouting report in the Inter-High brochure. Fukatsu, Sano's captain, deserves to be here even if he's in the shadow of Sawakita. A big point guard that is capable on both offense and especially defense. He spearheads Sano's deadly full court press and can even pressure Kainan's Maki. Shohoku shooter Mitsui also makes this list. He was a scoring force for Shohoku against Sano and Shoyo. Add to that, both times he was running on fumes. His version of the flu game. If I remember correctly, he made 8 threes against Sano, one even being a 4-point play. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Mitsui is also a good defender, having been able to lock up Fukuda to a certain degree. Mitsui is also widely debated online if he will be as good as Sawakita or Sendo if he never got injured. Maybe a topic for next time. Uzumi is basically Akagi too, with a bit lower rating, still reliable to be a team star and foundation. Soichiro Jin, Kanagawa's leading scorer at 30 per game. Why this high when Sakuragi locked him up, right? Well, the guy still averaged 30 and is a capable passer as seen in some games. A bit fancy too. If Slam Dunk was made today, he and Mitsui will be superstars with today's trend in three-point shooting. Something like a Klay Thompson. Morishige is Slam Dunk's Shaq, unstoppable force who Moroboshi failed to beat. His Inter-High debut game stat line was 50 points, 22 rebounds, and 10 blocks. He brought Meiho to the regional title and a ticket to the Inter-High in his first year. There are two players that I included here with less data. Michael Okita from the 3rd OVA and Minoru of Sano. Okita was the star of Ryokufu and I assume is half American. Displayed great athleticism and was being scouted by the NBA while he was in America. Minoru, on the other hand, was supposed to be the ace of Sano before Sawakita arrived. Given that small piece of information in Sano's championship streak, he was probably the ace or one of the better players of Sano during his rookie year. And finally, here we are at the superstar level of the ranking video. 7 players made the list. All are superstars, players that can bring you to the finals and get you some hardware. All are capable of winning the MVP and not only once. Sawakita, Maki, Sendo, Rukawa, Masashi, Moroboshi, and Chuchiya. Sawakita is obviously peak Michael Jordan inside Slam Dunk, walking buckets and lockdown defender. Even Rukawa had to learn how to pass during that game with Sano. Maki's the MVP of Kanagawa and is also unstoppable. Shohoku had to throw 4 guys at him to make him pass. Faster than Miyagi and probably the fastest player in the whole region. Can also match Akagi's strength as well. A gifted scorer, he also has a high basketball IQ and makes teammates better. Most likely the reason why Jin is Kanagawa's leading scorer. Personally, this one is my favorite. Sendo was one Kogure 3-pointer away from the Inter-High, and this was with a no-name backcourt, a create player type of center, Uzumi riding the bench because of fouls, and Fukuda who knows nothing except scoring. He matched Maki as a point guard and outperformed Rukawa as a scorer. Actually, rather than the Kogure 3, imagine if Maki fouled him on that fast break with a dunk, and they won by one. It would have been a three-way tie if Shohoku beat Ryonan, and with the updated scores, Shohoku would have been the one eliminated using FIBA's quotient system. Definitely a slam dunk superstar. Was even part of the opening theme, even if he wasn't a Shohoku player. If Sawakita was peak MJ, Rukawa was rookie MJ, unstoppable and the region's number 2 scorer. He also became a Japan youth team player after the Inter High. Masashi, the best big in Japan. He's ahead of his time actually with his playstyle. Masashi's dominance of Akagi shows that his game's for the modern day NBA, a slashing big being the result of a sudden growth spurt. And rounding up the list, two players with minimal information but were highly praised and were given superstar status. Moroboshi of Iowa and Chuchiya of Daiei. Both showed a small part of their games, with Moroboshi going on a scoring tear against Meiho after returning from an injury, and Chuchiya playing a point-forward Sendo-style game and beating Toyotama. It is implied that Moroboshi is a Maki-level player who might be a match for Sawakita, though he wasn't really that confident when it was implied by his coach. Not sure if there are any real sources for this, but word on the internet is that Daiei won Inter High. If that's the case, then Chuchiya must be really good, right? And that wraps it up. Leave your thoughts below whether angry or not. Go ahead. If you have any suggestion for the next slam dunk video, just leave it at the comments below.